All right, guys, so this story that you're about to hear here is crossing another giant, bright red line that under no circumstances should be crossed. But, look, you got to just call it what it is. We've lost our status as purely a liberal democracy. It's just not the case anymore. We are an authoritarian country at this point, an oligarchy. The robber barons have taken over. But even the idea of, human rights and constitutional rights, they're just gone. They're thoroughly gone. Let me walk you through this here. As we all know, Trump on the campaign trail repeatedly said, we're going to deport the pro-Hamas protesters. Deport the pro-Hamas protesters. Now, in reality, of course, that should have been a red flag in your mind, because these kinds of people look at anybody who is simply pro-Palestine and say, you're pro-Hamas. Those things are interchangeable to them. If you're pro-Palestine, you are pro-Hamas. So you have these massive protests on college campuses. Why? Because Israel is currently committing a genocide in Gaza. It's not really up in the air. It's not really difficult to determine what's happening. There is really no gray area at this point. That's why we have, every human rights group in the world has been screaming through a megaphone exactly what's going on. Amnesty International, for example. The UN is clear about what's going on. You have charges against Netanyahu at the International Criminal Court for the crime of genocide, right? It's so clear what's happening. And so, of course, people of conscience are going to say, hey, I'm against the genocide. And also, by the way, the U.S. is arming and funding the genocide. Cut off the weapons immediately. It doesn't get any more loathsome than what we're witnessing here. There's blood on the hands of American leaders as well as the Israeli government, right? Cut off the weapons. On top of that, a lot of these protesters say, hey, any sort of investment that these universities and colleges have from Israel, reject the money. Cut it off. We don't want any connections with this genocidal regime. In the same way, I would hope that in 1939 or 1941, right, you would have people of conscience say, the Nazis are genociding Jews right now. Any investment from Nazi Germany, cut it off, right? And so, okay, look at this. Let's start here. Barnard College of Columbia University expelled 3 pro-Palestine students in less than 2 weeks, the first time in 57 years that the university has expelled anyone for protest. So we're easing into it. Here we're just talking about, they were expelled. Okay, it's going to get a lot worse. Scoop. The State Department to use AI, artificial intelligence, to revoke visas of foreign students who appear pro-Hamas. Again, I want to reiterate, to them that just means you're pro-Palestine. You took part in a protest saying, stop the Israeli genocide. That's pro-Hamas to these people. Also, as you all know, Trump repeatedly said, we're going to cut off any federal funds that any of these universities and colleges get. We are cutting off those funds unless and until you stop the illegal protests. Again, what does he mean by illegal protests? Well, right now it means any protest of Israel, we're just going to smear you and say it's pro-Hamas, and we're going to cut off the funding over that. So you need to crack down on those protests. But look, the fear is eventually what that's going to mean is just any protest against MAGA, against Trump, against his policy actions. Eventually, this is the path we're going down, right? The path we're going down is Trump is going to look at a big protest against him, against some of his actions, and he's going to say, this is an illegal protest. And this time when he says, I want to invoke the Insurrection Act, he doesn't have anybody around him to say, hey, don't do that. We don't deploy the U.S. military in U.S. streets. Last time he had people trying to rein him in and steer him in the right direction. Now that they're not there, they're all yes men. You think Pete Hegseth is going to stand up and say, no, we're not going to do that. A new office at Columbia is investigating dozens of students for speech critical of Israel. One Palestinian student recently got a notice accusing her of discriminatory harassment. Ready for this? Her alleged offense, writing a pro-divestment op-ed in the student newspaper. So now it's discriminatory harassment and anti-Semitism to say, hey, we need to divest from Israel. Guys, moments like this is exactly why the First Amendment exists and exactly why free speech exists. Because if you let the powerful run wild, this is what they do. Anything that threatens them, anything that threatens their business interests and the money flow, right? They're like, hey, crack down on it, make it illegal, expel them. In many instances, detain them, arrest them, deport them, which leads me to the biggest part here. New York student protester held in immigration custody in Louisiana. A pro-Palestinian activist who took a lead role in last year's student protests at Columbia University in New York City is being held in immigration custody in Louisiana, records show, after he was detained over the weekend. ICE agents told Syrian-born Mahmoud Khalil they were revoking his student visa and green card when they detained him at his university-owned apartment in Manhattan on Saturday. The Department of Homeland Security claimed without evidence in a statement that the former student had led activities aligned to Hamas. Again, he was one of the organizers of the pro-Palestine protests, and they're accused, oh, you're tied to Hamas. Total fucking bullshit. The Trump administration announced last week it was rescinding $400 million in federal grants to Columbia, accusing it of failing to fight anti-Semitism on campus. Which, by the way, all the fucking right-wing, oh, bro, we're against identity politics, we're against identity politics. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to Israel, they're all in. They're all, oh, bro, anti-Semitism is a scourge. We got to crack down on anti-Semitism. And by anti-Semitism, I mean anybody who supports Palestine is an anti-Semite, bro. Okay, understand something, guys. This person that we're talking about here, he's a legal permanent resident. He has a green card. That's a legal permanent resident. So if they can illegally detain legal permanent residents, there's nobody they wouldn't do it to. That's what I need you to understand. This isn't, oh, it's undocumented immigrant, or they're on some, they're legally here, but it's something that could easily be. It's not like temporary protected status where there's some wiggle room for the president to say we're getting rid of that temporary protected status. Legal permanent resident with a green card. They detained him. By the way, they originally said, oh, we sent him to Elizabeth, New Jersey in an ICE facility there. Come to find out, they didn't. They had sent him, his 8-month pregnant wife went to go see him, and they were like, oh, he's not here. They took him all the way to fucking Louisiana. And then what are you going to do? You're going to deport him? A legal permanent resident in the United States, a fucking student at Columbia. What, are you going to send him back to Syria, which just got taken over by jihadists? And by the way, now we just heard they're doing massacres of Christians, innocent civilians in Syria. You're going to deport him to Syria all because he's against Israel genociding Palestinians in Gaza? Is that what you're going to do? So guys, I mean, look, 5-alarm fire here, right? Like, this is complete authoritarian crackdown, a war on free speech and the First Amendment and the Constitution. This is the canary in the coal mine. This is their first move of many more to come, where Trump very clearly despises free speech, despises a free press. That's why he's waging all these lawsuits to crack down on the press too. And eventually, this will expand to any illegal protest, we're going to take action against you for it, right? And again, if they can detain a legal permanent resident with a green card, there's very little difference between that and a native-born American citizen. They will do anything and everything they can to protect the Israel lobby, to protect the powerful, right? And this is just the beginning, man. And what's going to happen? Yeah, the courts might spring into effect and try to crack down or stop this or whatever, but that's a long fucking process. They could ruin your life in the meantime, right? And so 100% complete solidarity with all of these pro-Palestine activists who were brave, who were courageous, who did the right thing, stood up, made the right arguments, and this is how they get repaid for it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.